Have you ever considered waking up stronger, calmer, and more self-assured just by going to sleep? What if the secret to resilience lies not in your waking hours, but in the quiet state of your mind as it drifts into slumber? The thoughts you entertain before sleep are not fleeting. They are instructions your subconscious follows all night. If you go to bed stressed, your brain absorbs that turmoil. But if you fill your mind with wisdom, you don't just sleep, you transform. The night is not a pause, but a promise of who you are about to become. When your conscious mind releases control and your subconscious takes over, you enter the prime territory for deep change. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius didn't become disciplined by chance. He guided his thoughts before they drifted. If you don't program your mind, the world will program it for chaos. This is your chance to take control. When your last thoughts are filled with strength, your mornings greet you with a mind trained to lead, not react. If this resonates, hit subscribe. It's free and truly matters. Now let's explore what happens when the world goes quiet. Even with eyes closed, your mind stays active. Sleep isn't a break, it's processing time. Your subconscious records, organizes, and reinforces whatever you feed it. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." If you don't shape your inner world, fear and old wounds will shape it for you. Most people carry the day's weight to bed and wonder why they wake up anxious. But here's the power. If the mind never sleeps, it can be trained. You don't need to be awake to rewire your thinking. You just need to be intentional in that final, absorbent state. Aristotle said we become what we repeatedly do. Extend that to thought. We become what we repeatedly think. Feed your mind worry, and worry becomes your baseline. Feed it wisdom, and wisdom shapes your perception. The Stoics knew this. They practiced nightly reflection to purify the mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of your thoughts." This was strategy, not philosophy. The way you speak to yourself before bed matters. A single self-critical thought can echo for hours. Your mind takes your frustration seriously, solving problems that don't exist. But you can interrupt this. You can guide your mind by choosing thoughts that hold truth and power. Plato said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." That battle continues in the dark. If you don't seize that time, it seizes you. You wake up already behind, carrying recycled thoughts. You're not tired from lack of rest. You're tired because your mind rehearsed chaos. Change the foundation. A single line of wisdom repeated with conviction carries more weight than hours of overthinking. The mind responds to repetition. What you repeat before sleep slips into the subconscious. If grounded in clarity, it strengthens you. If rooted in fear, it traps you. Reset starts before you close your eyes. Socrates said, "The unexamined life is not worth living, including sleep." Ask yourself, what do I want to reinforce? The 5 minutes before sleep matter more than the 5 hours after. You don't need perfection. You just need a better pattern. Start small. One truth. Repeat it. Let it replace the noise. Your mind is listening. And the more you guide it with wisdom, the more it aligns with who you're becoming. That quiet choice shapes your reactions, confidence, and how you carry yourself. The people you admire trained for it, not in public, but in darkness, when no one was watching. That's where change happens. The thoughts you fall asleep with are blueprints for who you become. You may think sleep is a break, but your mind processes and stores. Resentment or failure rehearsed at night shapes your identity. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do, but we are also what we repeatedly think." Most people rehearse their own suffering without realizing it. They wake up tired because mentally they never stopped carrying the weight. If you end your day with peace, you wake up clearer. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Ask yourself before bed, what am I choosing to carry into tomorrow? The Stoics practiced nightly introspection, not to dwell but to clear. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself each evening to stay aligned with reason. You don't need to fix everything, you just need awareness. That awareness creates a gap where you can choose a stronger thought. Slowly, that choice becomes who you are. Socrates said, "Focus your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." Don't relive every mistake. That's mental self-harm. Healing happens when you choose a different story. Not pretending everything is fine, but holding pain with compassion. Whisper a better thought, and let it echo through sleep. The mind believes what you repeat. Train it to believe in your ability to rise. That version of you comes from what you carry to bed and what you let go of. At night, your thoughts have the stage. This quiet is programming. Your subconscious doesn't judge, it absorbs. If you sleep thinking you're not enough, that thought lingers. Sleep doesn't reset the mind, it reinforces it. The Stoics knew control begins in the mind, and the best time to practice is before sleep. Your day begins the night before. What you plant, worry or gratitude, grows at sunrise. Sleep in stress, wake in survival mode. Sleep in peace, wake grounded. Plato said the beginning is the most important part. Your morning begins long before your alarm. It's not about positive affirmations. It's about aligning with truth. I can let go of what I can't control. These are truths we forget in daylight. Socrates urged us to care for the soul, but how many of us cleanse the mind before bed? We brush our teeth but don't clear our thoughts. Reflection at night matters, not for guilt but for clarity. Ask, what am I holding that doesn't serve me? That question opens the door. When you sleep in peace, you wake with power, not over others, but over your own mind. The reality you live tomorrow is written by the thoughts you entertain tonight. That's not a warning, it's a gift. You can rewrite one thought at a time. Overthinking wears a clever disguise. It looks like concern, but it drains your energy. What seems like reflection is rumination, spinning in circles. Reflection helps you grow. Overthinking keeps you stuck. Aristotle said the energy of the mind is life itself. Wasted on unproductive thought, it leaves you drained. Overthinking feels productive, but peace comes from trust, not control. Jung warned that what you resist persists. Overthinking amplifies fear. You start with one worry, and suddenly your mind races through every failure. Reflection asks, what can I learn? Overthinking asks, what could go wrong? One opens a window, the other traps you. The Stoics had no patience for this. Epictetus said it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments. How do you stop? Observe your thoughts without following them. Redirect to your breath. Ask, is this useful? If it's outside your control, let it go. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Overthinking tries to control the uncontrollable. Overthinking at night poisons the subconscious. It keeps your nervous system activated. But here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. That distance is freedom. Not thinking more, but thinking with intention. The Stoics saw sleep as sacred, a daily death where the mind prepares to rise wiser. Marcus Aurelius's morning gratitude was prepared the night before. If you don't clear your mind, you carry clutter into tomorrow. Modern life obsesses over sleep hacks, but the Stoics practiced presence and discipline. Seneca asked himself daily, "What did I do right? What can I do better?" This wasn't guilt, it was growth. Science now confirms what they intuited. The brain processes emotion during sleep. What you bring into that space, your brain treats as important. The Stoics guarded their final thoughts. They knew those thoughts would echo long after eyes closed. Treat sleep not as a shutdown, but as a ceremony. Fill it with philosophy, not fear. How you end your day is how you build your life. It's not long hours that drain us, it's emotional clutter. You sleep 8 hours but wake exhausted because unresolved emotions were never released. Aristotle valued balance, but emotional imbalance accumulates. One irritation becomes hours of replay. You replay arguments, anticipate dread. These masquerade as planning but are clutter. Jung said what you resist grows. Emotional clutter changes your perception. You become reactive. Seneca said we suffer more in imagination than reality. Sleep is supposed to be a reset, but for many it's just another arena for conflict. The Stoics believed emotional discipline was courageous. Letting go is choosing peace over chaos. Ask yourself, what am I holding that I don't need? Not to suppress, but to detach. Marcus Aurelius said tranquility comes when you stop caring what others think. That tranquility requires intentional clearing. You don't need an hour. You need awareness. Name what made you feel small and release it. Stillness isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. The same way you don't go to bed dirty, don't go to bed with a cluttered mind. Every choice before bed either adds to the clutter or clears it. Plato said the best victory is to conquer self. Emotional clutter keeps you at war with yourself. Peace comes from choosing to release. Peace is not found in controlling every detail, but in refusing to be ruled by exhausting thoughts. Emotional clutter is the real exhaustion, and it can be cleared night by night. Most people try to add more when overwhelmed. But what if the answer was letting go? That's mental detox. Marcus Aurelius said pain isn't from events, but from your judgment of them. Letting go is giving yourself permission to stop carrying what's done its damage. Past regrets, others' opinions, fear of not being enough, these are invisible weights. Jung said until you make the unconscious conscious, it directs your life. Letting go protects you from that. Awareness comes first. Journaling works because it pulls chaos out of your mind. Writing creates detachment. This belongs to me. But it isn't me. Acceptance follows. Not everything will have closure. Letting go means deciding not to let confusion run your life. Mental detox is a daily choice. A few minutes of quiet. Saying no to please, yes when afraid. These small acts are messages to your mind. I won't carry what doesn't serve me. Letting go sharpens your focus. You realize not every thought deserves time. Aristotle said virtue is balance. Letting go is that balance between caring and obsessing. There's strength in releasing pain, not because it wasn't real, but because you choose peace over proof. Mental detox is trust that what's behind you doesn't need to be dragged forward. Letting go isn't loss, it's liberation. You start to feel like yourself again. The Stoics sought not a perfect life, but a peaceful one. When your mind feels heavy, ask what you're ready to release. That's where power lives. Most people go to bed trying to fix something. The mind stays active because it won't let go. But most of the time, there's nothing to solve, only something to release. Reflection seeks clarity. Rumination seeks control. Jung said what you resist grows. You can't calm a storm by shouting. Sometimes wisdom is doing nothing. Sleep isn't for solving, it's for letting thoughts float by. We treat every thought like an emergency. But how many late-night worries mattered the next day? The Stoics knew it's not what happens, but how you react. Sometimes the reaction is silence. Letting go is recognizing you've done what you can. Holding on robs you of rest. The strongest people know when to let go. Socrates warned against a busy life, including a busy mind. Before bed, retrain your mind. Instead of, how do I fix this? Ask, can I let this go for now? Most of what keeps you up is unwillingness to release. Detachment is powerful. It doesn't mean stop caring, it means stop carrying, drop it. See who you are without that weight. Even unresolved, you deserve rest. That's strength. The mind is a garden. It needs rest. You don't need to solve everything. Clarity comes from releasing the grip. In surrender, the mind expands. That's where peace begins. Your thoughts feel louder at night because there's less noise. That silence is your greatest opportunity. The mind is most impressionable in the dark. You train a warrior in quiet, not on the battlefield. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." The night invites you to look inward. Your subconscious becomes more active while you sleep. The thoughts you allow before sleep settle into your wiring. Marcus Aurelius reflected each night, not ritual, but reinforcement. Training the mind doesn't require loud affirmations. Sometimes it's just observing thoughts without reacting. That alone is practice. Aristotle said excellence is a habit, private discipline. Sleep is the most consistent habit. Night comes whether we want it or not. What are you doing with that window? What if you used it to rewire? The mind is softest when tired. Speak study truths, I've done enough. Not everything needs solving. These become anchors. Repetition rewires. Your conscious filters relax at night. That's not weakness, it's a window. What you give it becomes who you are the next morning. Socrates said the unexamined life isn't worth living. You just need a moment. The moment before sleep is that moment. When your mind feels heavy, don't run. That discomfort is the door. Sit with it. Speak with calm authority. You don't need to be perfect, just present. The subconscious responds to patterns, not passion. Repetition is its language. Jung said until you make the unconscious conscious, it directs your life. Repetition drags programming into the light. Most of what you believe was learned through repetition. If you were told you weren't enough, those messages sank in, not because they were true, but because they were frequent. The brain evaluates truth by exposure. Replace those with simple truths, I can improve. This will pass. They don't need to feel powerful, just repeated. Frequency matters more than intensity. The whisper repeated becomes part of you. The Stoics repeated their values daily. Marcus Aurelius wrote the same truths again and again. One insight won't stand against daily stress unless reinforced. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be." Repetition is how belief becomes identity. If you're not choosing your thoughts, algorithms and past wounds will. Keep it simple. Choose a few truths. Repeat them before sleep. What you repeat becomes what you expect. Identity isn't built in action, it's revealed there. Real construction happens in quiet, when you're not performing. You become who you are at rest. The story you've silently repeated is the blueprint. Jung said people avoid facing their souls. Nighttime matters because you face yourself without pretense. What you believe when nobody's watching defines you. The hours before sleep are formative. If you go to bed thinking you're falling behind, that becomes a filter. Thoughts become assumptions. Assumptions become identity. Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do and think. Most people never question those stories. The voice in your head isn't truth, It's programming. If you don't interrupt it, identity builds from old wounds. Nighttime isn't just rest, it's rehearsal. Rituals matter, simple ones. Reading wisdom, reflecting, whispering truth. I am not my past. These are anchors. Your subconscious is a garden. Every thought is a seed. Identity grows slowly, quietly, at night. If you've been waking up off, it's not weakness, it's the wrong script, but it's not permanent. The mind is flexible. Identity can be reformed through presence and choice, starting when the lights go out. Who you become is shaped less by what you do and more by what you allow yourself to believe. Choose carefully. Identity is what your subconscious believes when you're asleep. Most people fall asleep with noise. That noise settles in. The mind doesn't need distraction. It needs clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." What you feed it matters. The thoughts you carry into sleep sink deeper than daytime thoughts. If you fall asleep to worry, you wake anxious. What you go to bed with, you wake up in. Replace noise with philosophy. Philosophy isn't about being smart, it's about being stable. The Stoics sought control of self, not the world. Plato said the truth-seeking part of the soul must rule. End your day with philosophy. Not to be perfect, but to remember what you value. That choice becomes a mindset. A habit, a foundation. Aristotle said the mark of an educated mind is to entertain a thought without accepting it. That's what philosophy teaches. It doesn't just rest the mind, it resets it. Strong minds aren't built in daylight. They're shaped in darkness, in silence, in reflection. If you master that space, you carry that strength into everything. The subconscious doesn't argue. It takes in what you give it. Jung wasn't being poetic. He described how people sabotage their peace. The subconscious stores every thought and turns it into default responses. A person who constantly worries doesn't need a reason. The subconscious learned worry is baseline. Your mind is listening long after you stop paying attention. At night, the subconscious is most active. If you don't choose what your mind focuses on, your environment chooses for you. You can't expect calm if your subconscious was trained in chaos. Intention is everything. You don't need a dramatic change, just consistent repetition of better thoughts. The subconscious doesn't discriminate. That's the bad news and the good news. Damage can be undone. The Stoics wrote daily because they knew the human tendency to drift. You have power over your mind, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. He returned to it again and again. One idea repeated becomes a belief. One truth reinforced nightly becomes a worldview. Replacing noise with strength isn't just nice, it's survival. It builds a foundation that can't be shaken. The subconscious will follow the stronger voice, the one you repeat. Give it a better voice. Feed it clarity and stillness. The thoughts you speak in darkness echo through every decision in light. There's no secret. There's just repetition. What you allow your mind to believe shapes everything. Be intentional. When you go to bed in conflict, you carry it into dreams. The body rests, but the mind continues the argument. That silent argument hardens. What begins small ferments into a story. If you relive pain, it embeds deeper, not just as memory, but as identity. Plato warned against hating reasonable discourse. When we sleep in conflict, we reject reason. Resolution isn't always possible, but peace with yourself is. You can't always end the argument, but you can end its grip. The conflict isn't your identity. You can put the story down. Rest is a decision. You choose to release, not because they deserved forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Closure is what you give yourself when you stop needing the pain to make sense. Closure isn't found in the past. It's created in the present. It's a boundary. This ends here. Not because everything's perfect, but because you're ready to be free. You won't be here forever. The Stoics saw mortality not as morbid, but clarifying. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do." Mortality strips away what doesn't matter. When you carry mortality into sleep, you stop wasting energy on conflict. You fall asleep with clarity. Mortality is the ultimate anchor. It reveals what's urgent: peace, purpose, presence. That unease before bed isn't just overthinking. It's mortality reminding you you're temporary. What are you doing with that? The Stoic mind listens. It allows mortality to sharpen, not sabotage. Mortality makes the mind minimal. It trims excess. You become lighter because you stop carrying things that don't matter. You rest with your soul intact. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Postpone nothing. Postpone peace, presence, inner work." When you stop postponing, you start living. The paradox: carrying mortality makes you light. You stop packing for a future you may never meet. The mind that remembers death doesn't panic, it prioritizes. If this were your last night, would these thoughts deserve to be your last? If not, change the script. Shift from noise to stillness, from fear to freedom. Greatest clarity comes from remembering what matters. Sleep like a philosopher. Close your eyes not to forget life, but to absorb it. You don't just rest, you reset. That's how a Stoic sleeps, with humble power, grateful for silence. Most people collapse into sleep, not surrender with strength. They shut down without extracting insight. Stoicism was built for flawed, struggling people. It only asks that you respond with awareness. Epictetus said it's not events, but your reaction. That reaction begins not in conflict, but in the quiet after. Reflection separates reactive minds from refined ones. Reflection isn't overthinking. Reflection seeks clarity. Rumination seeks control. One frees you, the other traps you. When you reflect properly, your breath slows. You're cleansing, not clinging. Ask, what drained me? What lifted me? Who did I become? Most people never ask. They're tired because they don't ask. They carry unresolved moments into night. The mind is heavy when nothing's sorted. Night is sacred because it gives space. Space to think without performing. Even if today was hard, it wasn't wasted, unless you ignore the lesson. Ask not why did this happen, but what did this reveal in me? If the answer is uncomfortable, good, now you have something to work with. The point isn't perfection, it's presence. The work starts when noise dies down. At the end of the day, you're left with yourself. That moment is reflection time. Are you feeding your mind old guilt or teaching it to grow? Let the day teach you, even if all it taught was what not to repeat. Growth is sometimes honesty, admitting you snapped, noticing envy, catching self-pity. That's quiet, Stoic growth. Don't let the day end you. Sit with it. Let it speak. You don't need all answers, just willingness to listen. In that willingness, you become someone who learns from life, not just lives through it. Most people wake reacting, not choosing. They feel drained before the day begins. But with a trained mind, you move with intention. That's a superpower, not flashy but rare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. That awareness was prepared the night before. A trained mind in the morning is born from what you feed at night. Sleep doesn't erase thoughts, it incubates them. If you fall asleep with worry, that's what gets rehearsed. But train the mind to settle with clarity, and you wake with presence. Jung said until you make the unconscious conscious, it directs your life. But when you train it, you lead. A trained mind doesn't need forcing, it flows. You notice your first emotion before it takes over. That power is calm. It doesn't flinch under pressure. It doesn't chase validation. Discipline begins with thought, especially nighttime thought. The subtle decisions to forgive shape your inner rhythm. Waking up with a trained mind is a superpower, not because life is easy, but because you're unshakable. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a prepared mind, shaped by peace. When the world moves fast, the steady win. When everyone is loud, the centered are heard. That's mental preparation, built in quiet moments before sleep. The day doesn't decide who you are. You do. It begins in quiet when no one's watching. That's where strength is built. Give your mind something noble to rest on. Carry wisdom into sleep. Wake with a mind unconquered. The quiet moments before sleep are not an end. They are the beginning of everything you will become. If you found peace here, watch the next video. It goes even deeper. Thank you for being part of Mind Forge. We'll be here when you need to return to yourself.